Welcome to another season of the Polymer Week Podcast. My name is Struncova and today's guest is Anna Togrye, an American sculptor who creates unbelievable animal sculptures from polymer clay. She picked up sculpting almost 5 years ago and has combined her loves of photography, art, biology, and zoology into a new passion inspired by the natural world and its inhabitants. Hello, Anna. Welcome to the Polymer Week Podcast.
Hey, Lucy, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's nice to hear your voice.
Well, we should say that you are actually a cover star of one of our Polymer Week magazine's issues. And I had to read the article about you again, so I just got to remind myself what's your art about and how is your journey. And there is a sentence, and you said that sculpting to me is like being the architect of my own little world. And I love that very much. So do you remember the very first time you sculpt something?
I do, but I think I was either 5 or 6, and I sculpted a little horse out of clay when I was in I think it was kindergarten or first grade. And I remember being really excited by it. I think mostly because I was so stoked that I could interact with horses in some way because they're my favorite animal. So I clearly gravitated towards sculpting a horse and was very excited about getting the final results back from the kiln and just seeing what I made and kind of bringing something to life. But oddly, as excited as I was as a kid, I didn't pick clay up again for I think 23 more years or something when I was 27. So I had a very, very long hiatus, but found my way back to it eventually, which I'm really excited about because I don't see that changing anytime soon.
When it comes to the material, why polymer clay?
To be honest, when I picked it up 5 years ago, a little more seriously, I just had some on hand. And it's super accessible, so I love the fact that you don't need to have access to a kiln. You don't need any specialized equipment, really. You can just, if you have an oven, you can typically, make something. And at the time, I was just, eager to work with my hands and, find a new creative outlet of some kind. I think I was just kind of, ready to, try something new. And it was just available and accessible and kind of had, no limits, I guess, on what you can do with it. So it was just super attractive to me in that way. I was it just seemed like something you can make pretty much anything out of it. And it's anyone can start. It's super accessible, easy to find, not super expensive. If I try to sculpt something with really challenging PPE or something really expensive, or you need specialized equipment, it's just not really going to draw me in. It's too hard to even get started. So I just sort of dove in because it was just a low barrier to entry.
And you are inspired by flora and fauna. So was it always like that?
Yeah. I've always been a huge animal lover, nature lover. I get a lot of my inspiration from the natural world and the environment, plants and animals. I've always had a soft spot for animals, so I find myself just wanting to explore them more and sort of shine a light on animals.
So I'm curious if I'm right, but I can imagine you going on the walk and just look at all those tiny details and flowers and little leaves. So is it like that?
That's exactly me. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is take a nature walk, and I go on a walk every day with my dog. Ella. We just go for a little mile walk, and I live in Nashville, which I live in the city, but luckily we live in a place where we're really close to a park, so we just take the same route every day through the park. And I honestly when I let her loose to run in this park area, I just find myself getting drawn into the tiniest details on weeds and little flowers. And I don't know, it sounds sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of a daydreamer in that way, I guess, but I just get really like sucked into like how beautiful like the most minute details can be. And so I kind of like, I mean, you've seen my work, it gets like really detailed and like hyper like textured and stuff. So yeah, so I feel like that is definitely like present in my work. I definitely pay a lot of attention to like the tiniest details and find a lot of beauty in them.
You mentioned that you are going on the same way or the same walk every day. Do you find yourself fascinated by the seasons in your city?
I do. Luckily, Nashville has all 4 seasons to some degree.
Yeah.
Summer is like definitely the longest, and it's pretty close to being upon us. It gets really, really hot here. But I'm used to that. I'm from the South, so it's like it's in my blood, I guess. But luckily, yeah, I get to see the seasons change. I see like the fall leaves. I get to see winter. We get snow. I do like to see all the different seasons, but I love spring the most. For me, it's just like a lot of optimism and like looking forward to growth and flowers blooming, and that really inspires me to like sculpt something that's like in my backyard that I can see in person. It's really nice to sculpt from life. But yeah, I just love to see things like grow and change and notice like the differences in every plant like throughout the seasons. Like they all have something to offer. Like even in the dead of winter, like now all of a sudden you're noticing the bark on this tree that normally you would notice the blooms or the leaves or something, and now the bark is standing out because it's like you can finally see the texture better because all the leaves are out of the way. Yeah, I think if you look for it, you can find beauty and like in every season and find something good about it.
And when you see something inspiring, do you take a little sample to your home so you can have some kind of example you can sculpt with?
If I do anything, I'll usually just like take a photo of it or a video or something. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes like I'll get inspired by something too big to take home. So I also want to like, I'd also like to leave it for the next person to see and, to see like on their walk. But I definitely take a lot of photos and try to sculpt from a lot of like photo references in my daily life.
Well, your sculpting is absolutely incredible. And I'm curious that you mentioned in the magazine that you are a self-taught, and I cannot imagine how did you learn all of that just by yourself?
Yeah, it's honestly literally just been trial and error and like persistence, to be honest, a lot of patience, like seeing what's possible that other people have made, like seeing the results other people can achieve. I'm like, why not me? Like I should just keep trying. And it's a result of sculpting literally almost every single day for the past 5 or so years, and getting frustrated along the way because like at times it would have been a lot easier to have someone like teach me so I didn't make the mistake myself. But making the mistakes yourself is definitely a good way to learn. I've had to throw a sculpture away before because it was early on, but like I tried to make a zebra that was like standing on its like front legs and like bucking into the air, and I got very ambitious with it, and it was like I just started off with everything wrong. So I learned the hard way how to take my time, like approach a subject with like as much knowledge as possible. Like I've just kind of learned like through trial and error, just like through pushing clay around until it stops looking wrong, basically. That's been my approach recently. But yeah, it's all just been practice and more practice.
What do you enjoy the most about the process of sculpting?
Oh my gosh, that's tough because I like a lot of it. I mean, there's so much to love, but I think when I'm finally like, I really love to work on the face of a new animal sculpture because I get to like imbue some emotion and like feel like I'm kind of bringing something to life. And I don't know, I just feel like I'm creating something like no one's ever seen before. Like I'm creating like a new life in a way, and I just love to like get that emotion right on the face. Like that's my favorite part, is like finally getting to the point where it like, oh, it looks like a bear now, it looks like a peacock now, it looks like the animal I've been trying to make for so many weeks, and you finally get that look right. I love that feeling.
I think if you agree with me that creating sometimes for weeks in your studio can get a little bit lonely because you speak a lot of time with yourself. So how do you occupy yourself while sculpting? You listen to your music, maybe some podcasts or movies?
Yes, I actually listen to podcasts all the time, so it's super cool to be on a podcast. I've never been on a podcast before, but I have listened to like thousands of hours of pods. I listen to a lot of political podcasts, a lot of like true crime podcasts, and like comedic podcasts. Those are fun. Things that just like kind of pass the time, and like they like these like people sort of, I don't know, it sounds silly, but they kind of like become your friends, like part of your daily life. Like they're just sort of like speaking to you while like your life is like happening. And so it's a nice way to like just pass the time. But so I mostly listen to podcasts. I don't listen to music a ton actually when I'm sculpting. I love music, but I find that like when I'm listening to podcasts or stories or something, like time just slips away a little bit easier, which is kind of nice. And then I also watch, like, I like to find new shows, new TV shows and movies. So I just recently started watching this brand new one called Prehistoric Planet. Have you heard of it?
No, that sounds pretty cool.
It's on Apple TV. It just came out on Monday. And as like a nature animal lover, it's super cool. It's narrated by David Attenborough. Who's done like all the
my favorite
one stuff. Yeah. He's amazing. So it's this like really well done like animal documentary style show of dinosaurs. It's all done like CGI, like animation and stuff, but it looks incredibly real and it's crazy. So
wow,
yeah, that's been fun. I just kind of have like dinosaurs like roaring in the background as I'm like sculpting away at my bear or whatever. So yeah, movies, TV shows, podcasts, mostly, some music. Yeah, and also my cat keeps me company a lot. Her and my dog. Yeah.
You mentioned David Attenborough, and one of his previous movies was about saving the life on the planet. So I'm curious, when it comes to the polymer clay, and a lot of artists and people complain that it's just plastic material, how do you deal with that?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I don't know. I hope my other actions can like offset whatever like downside polymer clay has to some degree. I'm definitely really conscious of my like impact on the environment and take it really seriously. I don't think like the major issue of climate change will be solved by people like not creating art from polymer clay, because I mean that must just be such a small drop in the bucket compared to literally everything else that we're doing wrong. And so I really do try to like take my like behavior seriously as far as like the planet is concerned. So I don't eat meat for environmental reasons and ethical reasons because it's terrible for the planet. And I barely drive my car, luckily, because I mostly work from home, but I also have another job that I have to only drive like a mile for. But yeah, it's a kind of a tough pill to swallow. Like I don't want to be negative toward the environment in any way, but just simply existing means you're going to have some kind of impact on the planet, some kind of carbon footprint. But to be honest, I need to learn more about polymer clay's impact before I can like answer that more seriously as far as like how big of a deal it is, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, before you start searching for some information, there are not many. So we discussed that a lot in our community, and it was just like, at the end, we realized that if we are able to use the scrap clay and somehow figure out how to just not put to the trash bin the clay we don't use. There are so many artists using different kind of materials that are like plastic, and it's okay. But in some way, the polymer clay, there is like the polymer word as a part of it. So kind of makes it much worse than the rest of the art materials.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So in the end, I don't know. I think if we are just careful about what we work with and what we put in the trash bin, I mean, like your artwork is incredible, and I can imagine that you are really careful about everything you do and you work with.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of waste. Like I even have like a little bin for like scrap pieces of like wire that I use in the armature so I can use them later. Even like clay that the like air dry clay that I use that was like scrap, I'll put that into like the bulk of the next sculpture I'm going to work on where I need to bulk it out, that kind of thing. I try not to waste a lot. Also, hopefully, like the subject material like helps shine a light just on animals, like and how they're worth saving and how they're worth paying attention to, and like hopefully that offsets the impact of polymer clay, whatever it is. But I think like human history tells us that we're not gonna solve this problem by like consuming fewer resources. Like it's not gonna happen that way. I mean, we need to like solve it through innovation and technological advancements. So hopefully we can come up with something to like figure out how to get rid of the, all the plastics in the world. But I think people like us using polymer clay are probably just, a drop in the bucket. But
but it's kind of crazy, right? That, well, I'm the same person in the way that I don't eat meat and others. And then you realize that you do some kind of little steps to make the planet and everything better. And then you watch a movie or a document from David Attenborough or others, and you feel kind of desperate that there are so many big things happening, and you are you have no possibility to influence that in some bigger way.
It is really overwhelming. Yeah. It's hard to swallow sometimes, like how many issues there are. And for me, climate change is the biggest issue, like existential crisis, I think, that humanity is facing. But the exciting thing is, like, I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed and disheartened by it. But I think it's really important to like come away from these conversations with like an optimistic viewpoint, because we know what to do. Like, we do have solutions to this problem. Part of the problem is people just like in denial about it even existing, which is pretty hard to handle. But I think that we know what we have to do. Like, we have some scientific advancements that have been made. Like, we know we need to invest in wind and solar energy, nuclear energy. We need to get clean meat, like, so that we don't have like animal agriculture anymore. That's one of the biggest contributors to global greenhouse gas emissions. We need to plant up like trillion trees. We need to do all these things, and we know that. But so we have solutions to the problem. We're just not like enacting them. But how much I get very excited that we do know what to do. Like, it's just a matter of like doing it. So I think it's good to be optimistic, because if you're pessimistic, no one wants to even start to try. Because it's sad. No one wants to like live in a dying world. It's not an exciting prospect for anybody.
Yeah. Well, we have to say that all those small little things that we can do on our side matter as well. So, for example, what we're trying to do, as I love the product designing and packaging and everything, I'm just trying to figure out how to use no plastic, or at least less plastic if possible. And the problem is that everything is like double more expensive than if you would use the plastic. So that's kind of like scary at the first, but it's just, I'm trying to find a solution with our every little product. So instead of just like a plastic packet, we are using a paper envelope and everything. But like, it takes much more time and the price is totally different. So in the end, I guess we have to choose what's more important, if just money and earning something, or the planet and everything that we can do for that.
When the planet's gone, the money won't really matter. So I think the answer is clear. But in the meantime, it's hard to get people to like switch over, because it affects your bottom line. I get it. Like, whenever I send out a sculpture, it's there is some plastic involved, just because I like lightly cushion the most fragile parts of the sculpture with some bubble wrap. But like it's like post-consumer recycled bubble wrap to some degrees, like sort of helpful, I guess. But then I use like the styrofoam peanuts, but the ones that are made out of like vegetables, so you can dissolve them in water. Yeah. So I use mostly that, and then cardboard box. So that's not terrible.
That's cool.
But
that's
still,
nice.
I use plastic, but try to be cognizant of that. Hopefully I can find like an alternative that works as well.
And do you create your sculptures more like on commission, or mostly for you and you choose the topic as you want?
I have been mostly doing commissions recently. At first, when I started, the first 2 years of sculpting was just me, like after my like full-time job, just like sculpting for a few hours at a time on things I wanted to make that still live in my house, because like they're not up to my standards. Like, I don't want to sell them, because they were like practice runs basically on the like way to get where I am now. But I got my first commission, I think about 2 years into my like sculpting journey. And then since then, it's mostly been commissions, unless I have like some downtime between commissions, and then I'll just create something I want to make with the intention of selling that. But it's nice to have commissions because like you just have a guaranteed sale. It's like you got to pay your bills. It's really like important to like have those lined up. Yeah. But so mostly commissions for the last 3 years.
And you mentioned before that you are having a second job. So would you be open to discuss how is the life of the artist in USA these days?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, life of an artist in the USA. Well, my other job is right now it's part-time. It was full-time until like the beginning of this year. But I'm a photographer at a brewery here in town that my husband and I and our friends own together. So luckily it's like very flexible because I get to help, like it helps me like, you know, make my own hours and my own schedule and stuff. So very flexible. But it does make it hard. Like for the majority of the time I was working at the brewery for, you know, full time, like 35, 40 hours a week, and then would come home and, you know, you have all this other stuff to do in your life, take care of the pets, take care of the home, like make dinner, like do all these things. You got to like go to the gym, all this stuff. And then now it's like 9 p.m. And you want to get some sculpting in. So you sculpt until like 11 or midnight, and it gets kind of exhausting, and it like makes it hard to stay, I don't know, as like inspired, I suppose, in your like creations, because you're tired. Like you've been working your whole day at like another job. You've been like taking care of your other regular life stuff. So it makes it a little bit tough to stay focused. But luckily recently I've been part-time at the brewery and like part-time at my sculpting gig. So I can have like full days now where I get to like sit down for, you know, 8 hours and like knock some things out. So that's been really helpful. But that's still a new thing. I'm still like figuring out how that schedule works out and like finding discipline and like figuring out how to like structure things well. Yeah. But it's hard. It's a lot of like juggling, a lot of hats to wear.
And can you imagine yourself doing just sculpting as a full-time job?
Yes.
Yes. Because it's like a lot of sitting on one place, and you know, like I can imagine that as a photographer you are moving more, because you know I'm working on my notebook most of the day, and I can feel on myself how hard is it on my body that I'm just sitting and I'm still not finished with the to-do list.
I feel you. I think that's important to note, because like I definitely can see myself working full time sculpting. That's my goal in the next 3 to 5 months, is to like just like kind of remove myself from the brewery and just sculpt full time. But I can also see like on the days where I'm just sculpting all day, it does get like a little bit lonely. It's like you've been sitting all day, but that's why I'm also like into fitness and try to like make it a priority to like get some like cardio in, like get outside, like again, like the walk I take every day, just like take breaks throughout the day. I try to like have like solid chunks of like 2 hours where like I get some serious sculpting done, like take a little break for 20 minutes, like go back for 2 more hours, like take a break, like, you know, kind of like go back and forth, and not like, I don't want to like slave away over the drafting table, because it's like, that'll get really old really fast. It's like anything. I mean, even at the job at the brewery, like I'm up and down, I'm like doing XYZ. So things move quickly and like time goes by fast. And yeah, I think you have to do that in any job. Like you have to, find ways to like make it fun and keep it exciting and energetic.
And do you know how much time do you spend working on one sculpture in average?
It depends on if they have hair or not, because those always take so long. But I don't know if you saw the monkey I did recently, but that one was about 300 hours. I don't time it or anything, but like for a best estimate, I mean, it took a few months of working for like every single day for like a few hours after work. And that comes out to be about 300 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you prefer to work on one sculpture, or are there more sculptures on the table unfinished?
I mostly work on one at a time, but I kind of want to get to where I can work on like a few different ones at a time, because that's another way I think to like keep things exciting and engaging. Because
Yes.
every sculpture I've made, I always run into like some problem. Like I have to solve a problem. Like, how do I get this to balance, or how do I get this like composition, or how do I get this texture or something? So while I'm maybe like working through that in my head, I can like start working on like something else, or like start jumping into like the, detail on like a snake or whatever else I'm trying to make. Um, so honestly, I think that's something I need to work on, is like have a few different projects on my table at once, so I'm not bored with one of them, or I'm not stuck on one of them basically. Yeah, I need to do that.
Well, I'm curious about your drivings. Do you keep some of them, or do you keep some notebook with your ideas for future?
Drawings.
Uh-huh.
I'm not good at drawing, but that's only
No?
because I like don't practice or anything. But I don't really sketch out my ideas. I typically spend like a week or two. Whenever I get a new commission, I spend a little bit of time like looking at a bunch of photos and videos of that subject and coming up with like, honestly, it's mostly just in my head.
Uh-huh.
I kind of like just move things around in my head a lot and like play with different compositions in my head until I sort of like lean really heavily into one of those ideas. Either because I just like think the composition will look beautiful, or I think it's like achievable or whatever. So I don't really sketch things out. I have a few times for like really complicated, weird ideas, but I find that it hasn't really helped. I don't think I've sketched an idea in like, I don't know, like a year or something.
Mm-hmm. And do
Yeah.
you keep track with some new ideas that just comes to your mind?
Yes. I have like a notes app that I'll just
Uh-huh.
jot down ideas. If I get inspired by something, I'll just put that in there, just like a quick note or something. It's also where I keep a list of all my titles. So all my sculptures have titles that I feel like fit them, but they're all from this like kind of master list that I've just come up with through like music and like books and things that I hear like in my everyday. Like I'll just hear a phrase that like really sticks with me and becomes really meaningful to me, or it's like the title of a song or lyrics from a song, and I hear it and I'm like, oh, that would be like perfect for this sculpture. So I just have a big long list of names and ideas.
So somehow I get just the idea, if you are a fan of Avatar movie and if you get some inspiration from such kind of movies like that.
I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, I love Avatar. I haven't seen it in a long time, but when it came out, it was like, I remember how striking and just like amazing that movie was. That's good to hear too, because it's a very like surreal movie with like weird animals and plants and stuff, and like they're like kind of like they flow into each other a little bit. I've also heard like people have said my sculptures remind them of. Have you seen the movie Annihilation?
No, probably not. I will write
Natalie
it on my to-do
Portman.
list.
You should watch it.
Okay.
People have said they remind the sculptures remind them of that movie, because like in the movie the animals like take on their surroundings,
Uh-huh.
where they like incorporate like flowers into their antlers and like
Wow.
weird stuff like that. Yeah, it's a really visually like really cool movie.
Uh-huh.
But similar to Avatar in that way, like the visuals are just like vibrant and like cool weird animals. Yeah.
Because you basically create another character. And have you ever came to your mind an idea that those characters could be something else, such as merchandise or poster, something like that?
Oh, I've thought about it, because like I'm not great at marketing myself and like selling myself. If you look at my social media, it's sparse. So I would like, I mean, I feel like I've been putting that off a little bit until I have more time to like really focus on it, and like
Uh-huh.
when I can go like full time and structure my schedule out a little bit better, to like have days where I'm just like figuring out how to schedule out my social media posts, like how to, generate more income basically. And yeah, making like prints is one of the things I would like to do. Because my sculptures are like, they're expensive because they take so long and they're so detailed, but I know that other people would like to have them in some way. So I think of like a nice quality print of one of them would be really cool. I've seen a lot of people have success with like YouTube videos and generating income from that. I have never done that before. I don't know how I would approach that because I've seen a lot of people do that with like sculptures that take, like 15 or 20 hours instead of like 300 hours. And like, I'm not sure exactly how that would look or how that would work, but it's something I'm interested in and exploring. But yeah, that's on the to-do list, is like find other avenues aside from just the sculpture itself to like generate income.
And when it comes to sharing your knowledge, do you have any plans like being a teacher one day, or perhaps do more tutorials? Because I remember that you did the tutorial for the magazine, and
Yeah.
it was a wonderful project that you share with our readers. So do you plan something like that, perhaps like another income?
I would entertain that idea. I have no idea what that would look like though. I'm not opposed to it at all. I feel like it'd be really fun to teach sculpting like classes or seminars or something. I just don't know exactly what that would look like because they take so long. I wonder if that would just be like, here's how to sculpt like, like a dogwood flower or a goldfish like I did for the magazine. It's something I would like be interested in. I've heard from my mom whenever I've like tried to teach her stuff about like the computer, she's always like, oh, you're so patient. You'd be such a good teacher. So I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know what that would look like yet.
Yeah, when it comes to like the community of polymer clay, they are usually, or before the pandemic, it was much more easier. But when it came to the teachers, there were like 20, 30 people traveling around the world and teaching the projects of polymer clay. So as a job, it seems to be the best of both worlds because you kind of get to meet other people, you can know the culture, eat some special food at the place and others,
Yeah.
and then, see your skills and share that with others. So if you would be interested in that, I would love to invite you to one of our future events.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be awesome to meet face to face again and share
That
some
would be
knowledge.
great. Yeah. I think Zoom has been awesome, and it's definitely it's helped a lot throughout the pandemic, but it's still like you're missing like a little bit of a piece there. It's always nice to like see people in person, especially teaching. Like being physically present is a big part of it. But that's awesome. I would love to be involved in some capacity. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to meet so many new people during that because it just opens the world. And I had one interview today, and I was just saying to the lady that it's so wonderful that we can at least meet via Zoom because it makes the day totally different. I don't know, maybe you feel the same, that when you are working on something and you are still alone, it's just kind of strange sometimes. And then when you talk to someone about the very same topic, it makes your day immediately better. That it's just something that you can share with others.
I think it's nice. It brightens up the day. I do feel like I do pretty well with solitude, like being alone. It's like not a problem to me. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was actually like, I can manage. Nice, but after a few months, I was like, all right, I need people now, which like I'm an introvert. So it was kind of a weird feeling for me to like crave like just being around a ton of people. So that was a weird feeling. But yeah, obviously like we're all social animals. Like we need to be around other humans, and it's healthy to like meet new people and like surround yourself with like people in your community. So I would love to do that. I would look forward to that.
And do you feel that the pandemic and everything around kind of affected your artwork as well?
Yeah, in kind of a good way though, because like I said, the other job is a brewery, and people weren't allowed to like go to bars or really go out or anything. So there was like a ton of uncertainty with that industry and with that job, and everything's great now. But at the time I was like, well, I'll just like dive headfirst into sculpture. So I created an LLC in 2020 and like really got serious about it, and converted like an unused bedroom in my house to be my art studio, and like made it like a legitimate thing. So in a way, it was like a really positive silver lining that I was like took it more seriously and was able to honestly like dedicate a lot more time to my art. So it changed a lot for me in that way.
Is there something that you do in order to improve your skills to read some books, or maybe are you going to sculpting books or something that can inspire you?
Yeah. Honestly, seeing other people's art is really inspiring. I love to see, and it's not just art, it's just like, I feel like you can get inspiration from like anything in the world, really. So it's just, it's a combination of a lot of things. I think it's just like, mostly I'm improving through practice, like through sculpting every single day. Like, I don't think anyone can get like proficient at anything if they don't actually like sit down and like put in the time. So most of it's just like pushing through and like doing a lot of sculpting and like practicing all of the time. But also like knowing when to like take breaks and like get out there, and how those breaks can like inspire you, would like reinvigorate you, and like kind of put you on like a path toward like, I don't know, something new in your own work. You can get inspired by like fashion and like the textures you see in like a dress or something. You can get inspired from like your daily walk or whatever. But yeah, I just try to improve through mostly just like practicing, trying new things. I do try to like, I've been mostly sticking to one type of clay recently, but I do like to try new materials and new techniques, like new tools, that kind of thing. So yeah, experimentation, practice.
And do you sculpt from one colored clay, or do you use different colors of polymer
I
clay?
just do one color. Yeah, I feel like I don't think I've tried sculpting with colored clay before. I feel like that'd be kind of distracting, and then you don't get to like change your mind. Really?
Yes.
So I like to sculpt with like it's like a sort of fleshy white color, and then I paint it with either acrylic paint or acrylic ink or raw pigment powder, or a combination of all three, actually.
How big is your oven for baking?
It is honestly not that big, which sort of sucks. I dream of having like a big, like giant oven one day, because it limits me a little bit. I've actually baked something bigger than the oven before. I just had to do it in like 2 phases, and it's like a snake that's like separated in the middle. But anyway, it's just like a regular American sized like kitchen oven, and I don't know, it's not huge. I have to like measure out the interior. I think I have like 14 inches like height wise to work with. So sometimes I can make sculptures taller than that if like the taller detail is like sculpted separately and then like inserted basically into like the finished piece. I can do it like that, but yeah, I'm a little bit limited there.
Do you bake the sculpture multiple times? Because
yes,
such a size?
Usually.
Yes.
Yeah. Mostly because the polymer clay I use, like I like to solidify the progress I've made so far, because like they take like 3 months. I don't want to have this malleable sculpture sitting on my table that can like fall over and then all of a sudden like the face is squished. So as soon as I'm done with like the face or some of the hair texture or something important, I'll pop it in the oven for as long as needed, and like then I'm like, good, it's stable, it's sturdy, it's cured, and I can like keep adding clay and bake that again. And luckily the clay I use is really forgiving in that way, and it's not like, it doesn't make it brittle, it doesn't like crack or mess it up if you bake it more than once.
I assume you work with ghost clay, right?
I do, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you can mention that. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Its cosplay is amazing. I mean, it's like I'm glad that someone invented it, because it's really helpful, especially for like the tiny hairs that I have. Like they still are like flexible after they're cured. They're not gonna snap off or something. But I don't only use cosplay. I use 2 other air dry clays. One is like an epoxy clay, which is great for, I like to use that for like really like rigid parts of the structure, like for like the legs or something that I need to be really, really rigid. It's kind of like cures to like a concrete feel. It's a pretty interesting clay. And then I use this other air dry clay. It's like, I think it's like polyform cold porcelain or something like that. And it's cool because it has kind of a mind of its own, which is really fun. And it sort of forces you to like just like be okay with like the textures you're getting and commit like immediately. because it dries in like 10 minutes. Like it has a really short working time. So that makes it kind of hard, especially for me, because I tend to like really like fiddle with details until like I think they're like exactly how I want them. So with this like air dried clay that's like it's just done in 10 minutes, if you gotta go fast and you have to be okay with it, but it's sort of like it just kind of takes on a mind of its own in a fun way. So a combination of those three is usually I think those are the only three I use right now.
Well, I see a lot of people working with silicone and creating molds so they can replicate something that they sculpt. So what do you think about it? Do you feel that this is more like cheating, or is it still appropriate?
No, I don't think that's cheating at all. I don't think I would do it just because like, I don't know. I've always sort of built my sculptures as like one of a kind. And that's just how I like to do it. I find that to be really special. But I totally get that. I think that's like a really great way to like generate revenue. Like you have all of a sudden like a ton more sculptures to sell. So that's super cool. I don't have any idea how that would work with mine. I don't know if that would work well or not because there's so many.
It's maybe more
details.
about little parts. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it would work that well, but I just don't think I'm interested in like replicating them. I'd rather just like create a brand new thing that no one else has.
Imagine that you just finished a sculpture and you have to send it away to the customer. So how do you feel in that moment?
Oh, it's always bittersweet. I usually keep the sculpture on my, bookshelf or something for like maybe like 1 week until I send it out. So I can just like have it for like a little bit of time. But I've also, I've gotten to know it or whatever for the last sometimes like 3 or 4 months. So by the time I'm like ready to ship it out when it's done, I'm like, it's like a happy send off. They're always going to good homes and it's really cool to see where they end up. Sometimes they end up in like really appropriate, like geographical places. Like I have a polar bear that lives in Sweden now. I have a bison in Denver. And like, that's always really nice to know that like the collector loves it and like they get to, they'll send you pictures of it in like its final place. And so that's really rewarding, but it's always a little hard. It's a little scary too. It's like you work on it for so long and it's like, I've never had issues in shipping, but I'm always worried like something could go wrong. Like the post office could lose it or something, all that work is gone. But ultimately it's a good day. I'm usually happy to send it out.
With the shipping, it's just tricky. You never know. They're like, package is lost and sometimes the delivery and everything, it's kind of, I'm not sure they know what's inside.
We've seen the videos of, FedEx just like hurling a box on the steps and I'm like, oh my God. So I basically pack my sculptures like they're going to be thrown down a flight of stairs because like they might be. I put nice little fragile stickers on them that are like, please and thank you. And the post office kind of knows me now. Every time I go and drop it off at the post office, I'm like, just try to give this one a smooth send off or whatever. But that's usually who I use is the U.S. Postal Service because I actually did like before I sent my first sculpture out, I did some research into like who of the 3 main carriers in the U.S. like who's the gentlest, and someone actually sent like a GPS tracker that could measure like impact and like speed and everything throughout the shipment process. And
that's cool.
The Postal Service came back as like far and away the most gentle, like by far. They got to the destination with like a lot less like shaking and like speed changes and like impact or whatever. So I just, I just was like, I hope this article is right and not paid for by the U.S. Postal Service. But it's always been fine. So
it's incredible when, for example, I just received a package from UK. It was sent like 3 days ago when I received it, and the package looked like that it's been on the track somewhere for a year. So it's like, oh my God, how that's even possible? That's something like that can happen. It's crazy. Sometimes when we ship something to the US, the person on the other side receives a package covered with white paint. So we were like, what's this? Like it just got inside also. So we were lucky that we packed individually also the pieces inside, but you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what does the back end look like? What are they doing?
Yeah, but I'm happy that we don't see that kind of.
Yeah. They just have millions of packages, I guess. They're just like, they got to get them out the door fast. So I think the incentives are a little bit maybe like not in line with having a really smooth shipment, but it's just all the more reason to pack it well. I put it inside of a large box surrounded by all the like packing materials I mentioned, and then I put that box inside of another box. So it's like, you can destroy anything. Like you can destroy anything if you want to, but I think it's pretty safe unless like a forklift just like pierces it or something terrible. But fingers crossed I don't have that happen ever.
Well, we also have to mention that as a society, I feel like we are demanding a lot, and we just expect everything to be faster, better, bigger. So that there are just some issues going as well.
Yeah, with Amazon, everyone's like, why isn't it here? It's been an hour. My package hasn't arrived yet. Yeah, we're spoiled now.
Yeah, so how many commissions do you have a year?
More now that I've been able to like dedicate more time to it, but typically about like 5 or so. Yeah.
And you work only on the commissions, or do you sometimes feel that it's time to create something for you as well?
Yeah, I do both. So recently I've been creating like in between commissions, or like kind of when I'm like kind of what I was saying earlier, when I'm stuck on something, I have been trying to like have another piece to work on. So that like secondary piece has recently been like gifts for people in my life that have been like wanting a sculpture for a while. So I gifted my parents a sculpture like very early on in my like foray into sculpting. And now I have to take care of both of my sisters because they've been wanting sculptures for years now. So I am going to be jumping into their gifts soon. And then these spoon bills right here, this is a gift for a family friend. Thanks. So that is something I just was kind of like working on in between commissions, like at the same time as a commission. So that's going to be a gift for someone else. So like those are both kind of like for me and for other people, but not really commissions. So a little bit of both. It's like mostly commissions with like gifts basically sprinkled in between. But I've made a few things that like that weren't commissioned, but still live with me. So I'm happy to have them like stick around for a while until I sell them. But I still have the elephant and the moose and the peacocks. They're all hanging out in my house.
So when it comes to smaller artwork, do you feel that there might be a way to create some things as well?
I actually love creating small things. Like, I mean, my sculptures are like super detailed because I love to make them like hyper detailed so that like the viewer never kind of gets bored of looking at them. It's almost like, I don't know. I don't want my art to get stale, but that's why I feel like if you look at it every now and then, like you might still find something you haven't noticed before. So yeah, like the smaller the detail, the better, in my opinion. That's why like all the tiny scales on the fish, or like the tiny feather detail on like a little bird, and that excites me because it's almost like
wonderful.
Pushing. Yeah, it's like pushing the limits of both like the clay and what it can handle and hold up to, and also myself and like my eyesight because I'm like using a magnifying glass and like using tiny little, like I use like a little sewing needle to like get the tiniest detail. So yeah, it's just like another challenge. I actually really love to do the tiniest little minute details. Yeah.
And what about other artists? Is there someone that you are inspired by and you love his or her artwork?
Yes. People who have seen my art have sometimes mentioned it reminds them of Ellen Jewett. She is my like favorite artist. She's a huge inspiration, and seeing what she's been capable of has been super inspiring. I love to see her work, and I also like get frustrated when I see her work. So I'm like, oh my god, she's so damn good. So she's one of my favorites. I love her sculptures. There's so many people I follow that show up in my feed that are just like, how do they do it? And I just try to be, as good as them in some way. But a lot of it's like illustrators, like actually the stuff behind me, this is Christina Mrozek. I think it's how you say her last name. She makes drawings that remind me of like Ellen Jewett sculptures, like they're, plants and animals kind of together and really like ethereal and kind of like delicate looking. So her stuff is really inspiring. Yeah, they're probably two of my favorites. I have a bunch though. It's hard to remember them all.
I have to ask about your dreams, because when it comes to the topic that you cover from Polymer Clay, it's just, I'm curious if when you are sleeping, do you get some kind of dreams about similar topics like a fantasy and things like that?
I have weird dreams, and to be honest, I don't remember them in vivid detail. I always have really strange dreams, but I've never dreamt like in sculptures. I've never dreamt like a sculpture idea. I mostly just like work through my sculpture ideas in waking life, just like on the treadmill or something. And I just like think through different like, deviations of a subject or something. I wish I dreamt in sculptures. That would be really cool. And I'm sure I could come up with something like more surreal if I could do that. But maybe one day. I don't know. That'd be great.
Well, it's fascinating what you can actually create just with a few blocks of clay. It's just like, it fascinates me. It's just incredible how there are so many artists working with polymer clay, and we all start with the very same base, just like a few blocks of clay, and the results are completely different. So it's just incredible. Well, yeah, like the style and everything that comes through to the artwork and presents the author.
Yeah, that's why honestly, like finding your magazine was so cool, because of what you just said. Like we all have the same building blocks, and like look at the variation. Like you can pretty much build like anything with polymer clay. It's just like an endless like possibilities tool, and that's why it's so attractive to me as like something to work with. I mean, you don't the limitations you put on it are only the ones that are in your mind, basically. I love that. I love that about it.
Was it a surprise for you when you opened the magazine and you saw like different artists doing totally different artwork and sculpting?
Yeah, I mean, like everything was so different and so inspiring in that way, because sometimes like I personally feel sometimes like I get stuck in a rut, or like I don't feel like I'm progressing enough or something, and then you see someone else creating something so incredible, like different from you, and it's like inspiring. So going through the magazine was like a huge aspect of it, was just seeing what else is possible. Like I actually forget the artist's name in the same issue as mine. He makes like, they look like they're made out of metal, but he uses polymer clay. I think he's a German artist. I saw his work and I was like, how is he doing this out of clay? I follow him on Instagram now, but I just forget his handle.
You mean George Dinkle?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw his and I was like, how?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so cool.
And he is a photographer as well. He works as a photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that stuff was really cool. And that's like another important reason to like kind of like zoom out of your own work and like see what other people are doing, because it gets kind of, I don't know, tired if you're just like stuck in your own world, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, for that reason, I'm really happy that we had a chance to meet. It's always totally different experience, and it's so nice, I think, also for our listeners. Would you have any kind of advice for those who just open their first block of polymer clay and they would love to sculpt from it?
Oh, sure. Like dive in. Honestly, like it sounds simple, but just get started. Like don't take too much time, like preparing all the things you think you need to have prepared, like learning everything you think you need to know, because that knowledge is going to come from just like doing it and like just trying it. So don't hesitate to like dive in, and don't hesitate to make mistakes, because honestly, that's one of the best ways to learn. And don't beat yourself up when you get it wrong, because it happens to everyone. We all start without any knowledge of the material. It just comes with a lot of time and a lot of practice. And I would also say there's going to be a lot of times or days where you feel like you're not progressing, or you feel like you're failing, and you just have to keep pushing through until you get it right, because like I've been there. I still have those moments. I have them like relatively often when I'm trying to solve a problem, and the only way to solve it is like just to keep going, like keep trying, and you'll get there.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for having the time today. And I do hope that one day we'll be able to meet face to face and
That would be
just have some
wonderful.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.